Jake, some of your deeper work, I know even recently around the grind and this like drive that we as dads, we as men, my project list in this sphere, in that sphere, on the home front, my marriage, on the house and the finances, like the drive and the short-term subtle, like you're a good man because you've knocked more things off the checklist. Yeah. What you're describing with Jesus and his pace, his rhythms, his priorities, like if I truly would trust him, I would disconnect from the grind and be able to show up in a what was the word? Nourished versus malnourished, right?
Yeah.
I'd love for you to connect these two principles a little bit around this force that our culture says we have to, and we put on ourselves often as well, of like, grind it out, and how destructive that path is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Dallas Willard to this point was once asked, if you could describe Jesus in one word, what word would it be? And Willard said, relaxed. He's just so relaxed, and I'm not. Like I'm supposed to be becoming like him, and I'm not. There's a hard truth. A guy named Robert Clinton, who's a professor at Fuller Seminary, did research over like close to 4,000 case studies about how Christian leaders finish. If you're a dad, you're a Christian leader. You're leading.
That's true.
He discovered something shocking, that only 3 out of 10 leaders finish well, which means 70% won't. And what does that mean, finishing well versus not finishing well? Well, if Jesus has this thing that he desires for us called abundant life, and as his agents, that is also what we're partnering to bring others, our families first and foremost, this thing called abundant life. The enemy that's trying to steal abundant life from us is something I personified as the smothering grind of life. I can hear it now. Maybe listeners go, that's not our enemy. Our enemy's a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. Our enemy's spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. And it's like, okay, I get that. But it's just, for me, it's lazy philosophy, it's lazy theology, it's lazy writing to just say, the devil is our enemy or something. It's like, sure, that's true, but how is the roaring lion going to steal from you, kill you, and destroy you? What are these systems the spiritual forces in the heavenly realms are establishing to oppress you and keep you and your family and your relationship with your kids from this thing called abundance or abundant life? And so that's where I say this minion that is used, this tool that is used by him, is something called the smothering grind of life, who is very successful, as evidenced by Clinton. 70%, it's going to take 70% of us out. And what it means when we get taken out is one of 3 things. Burnout is one outcome the smothering grind is pushing for. Flame out is the second, and that's not just this state of exhaustion and irritability all the time and being reduced to just like survival mode. That's burnout. But flame out is moral collapse. Yeah. It's like I actually pull that ripcord, and I had an affair, I embezzled money, I abused my power, those types of things. Or third, the third outcome the smothering grind is pushing for us is something called tap out, which is quitting. And there's all kinds of quitting. There's literally, I'm leaving the marriage, I'm leaving the job. There's quiet quitting, I'll stay in the marriage, but we're parallel lives, roommates. I'm not engaged or bringing myself to it. I'm just kind of enduring it. But there's also the ultimate quitting, which is embracing the comfort someone perceives death will bring. Quitting on yourself, quitting on your family, quitting on life by taking your own life, it's unbelievable how many seemingly successful, high-functioning men do that all the time, right? So that's what the smothering grind is pushing for. Burnout, flame out, or tap out, and he does not care which one. If we hit one of those, he wins, and we become part of the 70% who does not run our race and finish well.
And we use the metaphor of a hand grenade. When a dad actually chooses one of those 3, they're handing and pulling the pin to a hand grenade shrapnel will get lodged in our kids that affects down to our grandkids, like great grandkids. It could be affected by a dad's decision. So if that stream, or we're headed in that direction, we're swimming in that stream of grind, one of those 3 areas. Yeah. Like, what is the escape hatch? Tell us more.
Yeah. So there's one of two things that everybody listening, you can kind of use to evaluate yourself. There's a guy here in town named Chip Dodd, Dr. Chip Dodd. He's a clinical therapist. And he came up with this framework of this model called, he calls it Euphoria River. And being in Euphoria River is kind of what it means to be alive. It's what it feels like to be alive. And there's all kinds of stuff in that river. Certainly there's, celebration and connection and, joy and celebration and success and those types of things. But there's also loss and there's fear and there's hurt and there's loneliness and all of these types of things. It's all in the river. Like if I want to feel like what it's like to be alive, I got to be willing to be in that river and open myself to feel all of those things and just show up to what life puts in front of me. But we don't like to be in that river. Many of us don't like what it feels like to be alive. We don't maybe have even the infrastructure to tolerate the river. And so we learn to escape it. We get out of the river on one of two banks. And so you guys listening, evaluate this. My first escape hatch, my first way out of the river is with a methodology called hyperphoria, which is just a fancy word for activity. Yeah. It's like, I don't want to feel what I feel. I don't want to face what I face that's going on in my family or at work, whatever it is. Yeah. So I'm going to take on more work. I'm going to stay busy even when I'm home and I have idle time to myself. I'm not sitting around like I'm reorganizing the garage. I'm like doing a project in the yard. I'm like working on the car. I'm going to run a triathlon and I start like training for that, stay in motion, stay ahead of all of the stuff that's in there. Okay. This is called hyperphoria avoidance.
Yes.
Of life. And often the metaphor for that, when I ask people like, hey, how's it going? How's it going at work? How's it going? They'll say, crushing it. I'm crushing it. And that's perfect because it's not inaccurate. It's like, you crushing life? Yeah, you are. You're crushing life. The idea is instead of living life, instead of experiencing life, I'm going to conquer it. I'm going to conquer life. Okay. Yep. Well, the problem with avoiding life with hyperphoria is it always leads to anxiety, often chronic, has to be medicated in some way, has to be, whether that's, through pharmaceuticals or it's through a glass of bourbon every night before bed. Like, I got to deal with that anxiety now, okay, in some way. Well, that sounds terrible. What's my other option? Like, well, if I don't want to avoid life and my own heart, my own feelings with hyperphoria, I can escape on the other bank, which is called hypophoria. And that's a fancy word for apathy avoidance of life. So if I'm conquering life on the hyperphoria side, I'm just withdrawing from life, checking out of life, numbing out of life on the hypophoria side. What's that look like? It looks like drinking too much. It looks like binge watching sports or Netflix. It looks like scrolling my phone, mindlessly for hours, going on down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos or whatever it is, video games, et cetera. And the problem with avoiding my own heart and feelings and avoiding life with that bank is it always leads to depression, a loss of meaning and purpose. Life loses its luster. And so I have to evaluate myself constantly and ask myself, am I in the river with my kids, with my family, facing what's mine to face, feeling what's mine to feel, exploring those feelings, naming what I need, getting that need met in a healthy way, staying in that river? Am I doing that, or am I engaging in activity avoidance or apathy avoidance? And the goal, when the answer is, yeah, I'm avoiding my own heart and feelings, and I'm avoiding my kids, I'm avoiding my family, and I'm avoiding what's mine to face with either activity or apathy, the goal becomes, I got to get back in the river. How do I do that? The entry point is through the heart, that heart part of us. Heart, soul, mind, and strength. I've got to begin to care and give curiosity to what's it like to be me? Like, what feelings are true in there? Whenever, by the way, this is a real thing. This isn't like, no one's making this up. This isn't fairy tale land. Like, this is a science called affect labeling, AFFECT labeling, affect labeling. Tons of research on affect labeling. And affect labeling is the science of just working to put words to the feelings that are happening in my body. And if I can work, like you have a wheel, like if you can work to go, all right, which one of these most accurately describes what's true inside of me right now? I think it's a clumsy process, right? Like maybe this one, but the fact that I'm doing that work and then I start to explore, well, what's that feeling about for me? Like maybe let's say it's fear. Well, what's my fear about? Like, is the feeling that rises when I sense I or someone I love is at risk of being harmed in one of four ways, emotionally, mentally, physically, or spiritually, how do I sense that I or someone I love is at risk? Oh, this way, that way. This is what this is about. Okay, what do I need? Well, the need of my fear that my heart has is for protection, for help, or for refuge. And it's like sometimes I can get that need met on my own. It's like, okay, I know how to get the protection I need, or I know how to go, I know the person I need to go ask for help with this or whatever it is. Sometimes I need someone else to get my needs met in a healthy way. And I have to ask them, would you be willing to provide this or help with this or do this for me? But it's the pathway back into the river of life is through the heart.
Yes. Jake, there's so many side parts to this conversation, but I have to pull us towards the attunement triangle. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the word attunement and the tuning. We're a guitar family. We've got a lot of guitars in the family, and
awesome.
And it doesn't sound good when we're playing multiple guitars, or my daughter's got her violin now, and they're not in tune.
Yeah.
So first, could you kind of define the word attunement, and then take us into how these three core pieces play together?
Yeah, I know you've had him on, Dan Allender, the Christian psychologist who's out in Seattle. And I actually got that word attunement from him originally. But according to Allender, attunement is this, first of all, attunement is the key to all healthy, deeply connected, lasting relationships. If there's one thing that's going to ensure that the relationship, whether it's with my wife, whether it's with one of my kids, it's going to friendships, neighbors, it's going to ensure that we remain healthy and deeply connected and the relationship, perseveres and lasts. Attunement is the one thing that's going to do that. He says, here's what attunement is. I see you. I'm willing to feel with you. I'm willing to suffer alongside of you, and I delight in you. That is attunement. I see you. I feel with you. I suffer alongside you, and I delight in you. Any relationship, mature relationship where two people are working to do that, right? I'm just working underneath the off-putting behavior, okay? Underneath that facial expression that pressed on my trigger, or, I told myself a story about, if I could learn to see underneath all of that, the tone of voice, the stink eye, whatever, and I can work to see them, like I'm working to see you. What's underneath that? What's it like to be you in this moment? A little objective affect labeling. And I'm working to see them and feel what I feel with them and suffer the moment alongside them and look for delight in them. Any relationship that consists of two people doing that, that's a relationship that's going to last. Often, though, in a parenting-child relationship, especially when they get a little older, start hitting those tween years, it's one-sided. They ain't going to attune with you. Like, you got to be working to attune with them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And just to clarify what it's not, and you sent me these ahead of time, so it's not, attunement is those four things you just mentioned. It's not behavior modification. It's not toughening up kids to survive in the world. Would you just expound on those two things that it's not real quick before we do the triangle?
Yeah. So behavior modification tends to be a very popular approach to parenting. It's like we got to get them behaving a certain way, getting certain grades, engaging with adults in a certain way. And obviously, it's very important and significant to bring guidance to our kids to show them how to relate in the world and how to be in the world and all that kind of stuff. But when the focus is all about, kind of like this behavior modification and you behaving and acting in our home and outside of our home the way that I expect. Often that's really not about teaching the kid to thrive in the world. That's about PR. That's about
how am I seen?
Do you know what great parents have? My other mentor, Jeff Schulte, who's here in town, taught me this. Great parents have great kids. And you go out there and you be that great kid. And as you do, everyone's going to know what a great parent I am. And that tension between great parents and great kids is something called pressure.
It is.
And when you don't meet those expectations, the pressure comes from there's going to be a punitive response. You're grounded, take your phone away, God forbid, spanking, those types of things. And as a result, I'm not actually teaching my kid to survive in the world. I'm just teaching them to survive me. And is it any wonder that so many studies show that these kids that are 4.0 students and yes ma'am, yes sir, and all this, go off to college and they go off the deep end deep plunges into pornography or partying or sexual exploits or whatever it is, drinking and drugs. Like, what's going on there? It's like, well, you didn't actually give me the infrastructure I needed to go out and face the difficulty of life. You just taught me what I needed to do to not, kind of get punished by you, or cut off by you. And so it can be very, very harmful when we focus on behavior modification instead of this thing called attunement, which is, I'm trying to decide I'm trying not to share too many personal stories because they're not all my stories to tell. But I'll tell you one generically is I had one of my sons came home a little after curfew, and I had a bunch of fear going on inside of me that I was not connected to, right? As a result, I was dismissing it, ignoring it. It was just all about, we made this agreement. He had this time. He's supposed to be home. And rather than being connected to how scary it was for me that he's 15 minutes late for his curfew and I'm starting to go to anxiety, the impairment of fear anxiety, I'm picturing him dead on the side of the road or doing something he shouldn't be doing with friends or whatever it is. Just this anxiety is swirling in me, and it's ramping up my compulsion to want to control him. I will make sure that, you behave X, Y, Z. So he comes in and I just lay into him, right? And I'm lecturing him, and it's probably getting louder as I go and all this kind of stuff. In the middle of it, he does what a teenager does. He goes, God, Dad, you can make a big deal out of anything, which is true.
Yeah.
So what I did in that moment, Jeff, is I was able, even in that moment in my heightened state, to attune and just see that this was not effective. Like me lecturing him, I was exasperating him. I was actually creating a distance between us, that this was not a teaching moment, not an effective one anyway. And so what I actually responded with when he said that, God, Dad, you can make a big deal out of anything. I said, yep, you're right.
You're right. Yeah.
I can do that. I know I can do that. I'll tell you, why don't we push the pause on this? Glad you're home safe. Why don't you get a good night's sleep? I'll get a good night's sleep. Glad you're here. We can circle back to this conversation tomorrow, And that's what we did. And then we had this really great conversation the next day where I was more connected to how scary that was for me. I was able to express that to him. It's so scary for me. I just care about you so much. Want to know that you're safe. Also, a big part of life is when we make agreements, we honor them, and we had this agreement. We were able to have even a conversation about, is this still the right time for you? We made this curfew a year ago. Is this still the right time? Would you like it to move a little bit? How can we work together as you're getting older to give you more responsibility and those types of things? Can you be sure that you're honoring your side of the commitment, even if it's inconvenient or something? And if you're going to be late, you need to call. And we just had this great conversation that was truly about teaching them how to thrive in the world, not just about, you're going to behave how I want you to behave, and if you don't, you're going to hear from me. That's very different.
And in my phase, there's the classic, use my voice, my height, my age. Like, basically, to get low, to get slow, to get quiet. And so, again, these four with attunement, I see you, I feel with you, I suffer alongside you, and I delight in you. Yeah. And that is, you describe that as the peak of and then there's two more pieces to this attunement triangle. Could you explain kind of the base two pieces?
Yeah, that attunement triangle is like the structure of all healthy, lasting relationships. So the pinnacle, what we're all shooting for, is that idea of attunement. And then the two bottom points that are kind of the support aspects of this structure, again, this is all Allender. On one side, you've got something called containment, and then on the other point, something called repair. Containment is the playing field of relationship. And what containment means, this playing field that we establish together of relationship, is you don't have to get it perfect with me. Like, you are invited to try and to practice relationship, which means sometimes I acknowledge you're going to step out of bounds. I'm going to step out of bounds. You're going to bump into me hard. I'm going to bump into you hard. You're going to foul me. I'm going to foul you. You're going to knock me over at times. I'm going to knock you over. But while we're going to try not to do that, we're going to try to have good form relationally. We're going to try to run our route right. We're going to try to not overly use aggression. Like, we're going to try, but we're humans with our own stuff, and we are going to step on each other's toes at times. Containment is the grace of the playing field that allows me to practice and not always get it right, allows you to practice, not always get it right. We're both committed to, here's the playing field, and I'm not walking off the field. We can both be on the field and accommodate one another when we don't do it perfectly. I didn't say it right, tone of voice, wrong word selection, reacted wrong, whatever. The other side, repair, then serves that because it's not if, but when I blow it with you. We're both committed to circle back and do the repair work. And repair has to be particular. It can't just be, so you're sorry, so apologize to your sister, for hitting her. It's got to be, I know when I said this, I did damage to you and I did damage to us, and I am sorry. Will you forgive me? That's repair. Relationship. Again, with parenting, it's more one-sided. They don't have frontal lobes yet. It's got to be. They need yours. But in adult, mature relationships, it's got to be two-sided. It's got to be two people showing up 100% with this. Parenting, more one-sided. But any relationship where there is attunement, containment, and repair, that is a relationship that's not only going to last, it's going to flourish.
Jake, this has been so helpful, and I am so grateful for the way you've just kind of brought all of this research, your lived experience, and into helping all of us dads. And I'm looking forward to already the next conversation when you have the book and the assessment out. I want to invite you, any just last, I didn't say this yet. I want to make sure the dads hear this. Any last words?
Oh man, I think I've probably snowed them over enough. Just that, be gracious with yourself. I meet with so many dads who are constantly beating the crap out of themselves for, even in churches, it feels like Mother's Day rolls around and the messaging is like, you're doing a great job, moms, keep up the good work. You're changing the lives of these kids. And then Father's Day rolls around and it seems like the messaging is just, come on, dads. Would you step it up? Would you get in the game? Would you, it's just like there's this natural kind of bent towards fathers. And I just want you to know, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably doing great because you care. And you're so much stuff on your website, Jeff. I love the resources you're providing. You're talking about being intentional as a father and writing this generational story and all these kinds of things. And if you're listening to this podcast, it tells me you're probably the kind of dad who cares. You are being intentional. I love your language on there, Jeff, that you don't have to be a perfect dad. You just have to be in process. Progress, process, that's what matters. Stay in it. Me and Jeff are both for you, and we're with you and love you.
Yeah. So good. So good. Could you pray a short prayer over all of us dads as we close?
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate to just kind of recite the Lord's Prayer over us. That'd be great. Our Father, who is in the heavens, holy is your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. Yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever.